All right, it must feel like Christmas Day because your chiller is here, and I'm gonna walk you through all the steps that you need to know to unbox it, to set it up, and to get it up and running so that you can have an amazing ice bath in just a little bit of time. All right, first thing we're gonna do is actually unbox this thing. And I wanna tell you, we put a lot of thought in to how we designed this box so that it'd be super easy to take something that's pretty heavy and unbox it. So you don't have to be lifting things out of things. So first thing, you'll need a little knife or a pair of scissors, and you're gonna cut along here, there's cut along the back side, here. Anywhere that you see the tape, you're gonna cut down this line, and then it's gonna do a little magic trick. So that folds down like that to reveal your actual box that the chiller's in. There is a handle right here, but actually you can reach through and grab the handle of the chiller, and you just need to slide it out a little bit. One thing you'll notice is there's a little note on here. So you wanna make sure that your chiller has been sitting upright for about 4 hours before you start it for the first time. Once you receive it, we don't know how it was shipped, and it might have been shipped on its side, and there's some special oils in here that have to sit in its reservoir so that everything is lubricated when everything is moving. And so just in case, we wanna let this sit for 4 hours before you turn it on. Now you might be tempted to take your knife and go ahead and cut this right here, but you would be mistaken. We actually thought about how it wouldn't be very convenient to pull a chiller out of this box. So we added these nice little tabs. There are 4 of them in total, 2 on each side. So all you have to do is pull these little tabs out, get the ones on the back here. Then you can just lift your box up without having to lift up your chiller. All right, this is your accessory box. Everything you need to be able to hook up your chiller to your ice barrel. Before we're gonna plug in our chiller or get it placed, we're just gonna get our ice barrel ready. If you haven't already, you can start draining your ice barrel and get all the water out of it. You're gonna need that because we're gonna change out some of the fittings that you have on it, whether that's an ice barrel 300, ice barrel 500, or even the ice barrel 400. Once you're in the box, you'll notice that we have 2 of these quick connect hoses, and then we have the rest of the accessories. We have our quick connect shutoff valves. We have an elbow, a couple elbow extensions if you need those, our garden hose adapter. We'll talk about that in another video. We have a wrench. This wrench is used to open up our water filter every time we change the water filter. These guys are really important. We have 2 different wrenches. Now, many of you will want to look at this right away. Some of you will not, and that's okay. But the owner's guide has a lot of really good information about the whole setup process. And then if you need anything else in the back of the owner's guide, all kinds of resources that you can scan and get quickly to. All right, for this first part, we're gonna install these new ones right here. We gotta remove all the old parts so we can install those. All right, you got 2 wrenches in your accessory kit. One with the little notch cut out like this. This is the wrench that you're gonna be using to take all the parts off your ice barrel 300, 400, or 500. This one we'll use in a minute to install our new parts that came with our chiller. So first, you've drained the barrel, right? Okay, good job. You're gonna remove this spigot first, and this inside part is the part you're gonna use. Lefty-loosey, that'll loosen up. I'm gonna take that out. We do not wanna take our bulkheads out because we're gonna use those again. Next, we're gonna take off the plug. You're gonna use this end of the wrench here again, but now with this larger size right here. We're gonna slide this right over the fitting and get it loose. Once it's loose, you can just do it by hand. Remember, we don't wanna loosen up or take off this bulkhead. One of the most important things that you need to do before you install your new fittings is wrap it with our ice barrel thread tape. This is a special thread tape that we designed, and I'm gonna show you the easiest way to do that. If you hold the fitting so the threads are facing away from you, and you take the tape so that it's rolling away from you like this, and then you hold it on with your thumb, you're gonna pull pretty tight, and you're just gonna bring it around, and that is the 3rd wrap right there. That's plenty. And then what I like to do is just take my hand and go around it a few times. If you were to wrap it the other way, when you go to screw it in, it actually unravels the wrap. This actually forces the wrap deeper into the threads, makes it really nice. I'll just set that aside, that one's ready. You're gonna do this to every fitting in here that has threads. Okay, so now we got our first part that we need. This is our elbow extension. This part, and this part are going to be used to put in the top bulkhead. And we'll start with this part first. Now we have the wrench that does not have the notch cut out of it. This is specifically fits all of these parts that we're going to install. First, we'll start with this guy. This one you don't really need to use the wrench on because once you start tightening up this, it'll naturally tighten this one up. And you have to have the extension because on the 300, we can't get our shutoff valve under the handle there. But once you get it there, you can take your wrench and you can use this side here and give it one final twist. Now the reason I'm making this so tight, one, these are all brass parts, so you're not gonna snap them like plastic, and it won't pivot on me. When my hose hangs on there, it won't be kind of pivoting away. Next, you're gonna take one of your shutoff valves. Again, you'll need that wrench, and you'll thread this on righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Just go until it gets tight, and then you're gonna take it one more rotation until the shutoff valve is facing you, so twist that around. Nice and straight there. All right, that is what the top bulkhead is going to look like. The bottom bulkhead is going to take another one of these shutoff valves, but you don't need any other parts. You don't need any elbows or extenders. So this is just going to thread right in. Now, if for some reason your bulkhead did get loose, you may need that other wrench again. And on this bulkhead, it is a reverse thread, so it doesn't loosen when you tighten it up. So actually lefty is tighty. So now that's good and tight. I'm going to finish screwing this the rest of the way so it doesn't spin on me. Same thing, once it's tight, bring it one more revolution around until you have it lined up top. Now that you have the bottom quick connect shutoff installed and the top quick connect shutoff installed, we're going to go ahead and shut the valves. Right now they're open because they're facing out. Yours might come closed, but when they're perpendicular, we know that they're closed completely. Now that both of them are shut, we can start filling it up with water. All right, there are a couple pieces left in our box. Our quick connect hoses, they're 6 feet long. They have a couple straps around them. You'll need a pair of scissors or just some wire cutters. Snap those bands. Now you'll notice on the end of these, we have this hole right here, and that's all you need. It's just a few millimeters of a pull, and that will connect and disconnect from your quick connect. I'll actually show you with this part. This is an extra part that comes with your accessory kit, and it allows you to take the hose when it's connected to your ice barrel on one end, connect this to a garden hose, and then this plugs in like that and allows you to drain the water from your ice barrel anywhere you want by connecting it to a standard garden hose. And you can see how easy that is to connect and take apart. And it's essentially what we're going to do with all the quick connect fittings between the ice barrel and the chiller. So now we got to pick the right spot for your ice barrel. Once you fill it, you already know this, it's pretty permanent. So whatever place you want it, you have to think about what side do I want my valves on the 300. 500's a little less of an option because the valves are on the back. And the same thing for the 400, you can kind of pick what position you want to put it in because it's a round barrel. So I'm going to slide this over a little bit this way because I want to put my chiller on that side. All right, now we're going to place our chiller. Remember, this is about 80 pounds, so you might need someone to help you lift it. If not, just rest it against yourself. I'm going to place it here, and one thing I want to note is the space between whatever's next to it. On the right side of the chiller is where our air filter is, And this is where all the fresh air comes into the system, and then all the hot air blows out the other side of the chiller. We need to make sure that we have roughly 2 to 3 feet in between the chiller and whatever it's next to. We're out here in the open, plenty of air can get around this, so I'm not too concerned about it. But we just want to make sure we're not up against a wall and it has no way to pull in fresh air, and it can cause the system to go into protect mode, which we'll talk a lot more about in a little bit. So both sides look great. Now we got to talk about power. All right, this is the back of the chiller, and right here on the right side, you'll see strapped into the chiller is a power cord. This power cord is about 10 feet long, and on the end of it, it has a GFCI, which protects the system from any kind of ground faults that might happen due to any kind of electrical issues. So while this portion of the power cord is water resistant, we want to make sure that it's not sitting like in a pool of water. And so I actually, because mine's outdoors, I have this little outdoor waterproof box that I'm going to put it in. Let me show you. So you can get these kind of boxes at any hardware store or on Amazon or something like that. You might notice that I already have a chiller plugged in here. I'm actually powering 2 chillers. These chillers only use roughly 6 amps of power, so I can easily power 2 out of this box. So I'm just gonna tuck this in here. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in. Now I know that my GFCI is gonna be safe from any weather or anything like that, bugs, stuff like that getting into it. All right, let's connect up our quick connect hoses. One thing you'll note is that they are the same hose and they'll connect to either one. Easy way to make sure you're connecting to the right ports is that the bottom port goes to the bottom port of the ice barrel, and the top one connects up here on the water filter side, and it connects to the top port on your ice barrel. This is gonna be the same thing on the ice barrel 300, the ice barrel 400, the ice barrel 500. All right, that might have been too fast for you. Let me show you exactly how this connection works. So again, this little thing, you pull on that and you hold it while you're pushing on, and if you need to, you can hold on to the front of your chiller, give it a tight pull, and that will release into place. Now, how do I know this is actually on, or not sorta on, or kinda on? One thing you can do is give it a good pull. If it won't pull off, you did your job. Now, the other thing to note is that while it does screw here, this is just so that the fitting connects to the hose. We don't ever want to unscrew that. There's no need to do that. All we're ever going to do with these is quick connect them. Now that we have the ice barrel where we want it and the chiller where we want it, the hoses have no kinks in them, everything's hooked up, we're almost ready to start filling it up. Inside your barrel at the bottom, you have a bulkhead, and more than likely inside your bulkhead you have a pre-filter that looks like this screwed into it. For the chiller, we're going to use a little bit more of a robust pre-filter, and that is our advanced pre-filter. So this guy is going to get unscrewed from our bulkhead. We're going to take the new one and we're going to go ahead and screw it in inside the ice barrel. Now that we got our pre-filter in place, which is super important, it protects the whole chiller system for little particulates getting into the system and causing any issues. We want to make sure we're always operating the chiller with the pre-filter in. We're going to take another step to make sure that we have really great water to start with. We are going to use the ice barrel carbon filter. You can buy that online as an individual item or as a part of the chiller maintenance kit. You're just going to screw that right onto your garden hose, and the weight of it makes it really nice that you can just drop it in and fill up your barrel. While our ice barrel is filling up, we're going to go ahead and download the ice barrel app if you haven't already. Inside the owner's guide, you can find a QR code right in the beginning of the owner's guide. Just open up your camera, scan that QR code. It'll take you right to the App Store, whether it's iOS or Android. Go ahead and download the app. Our water's almost filled up to where we want it, but where actually do we want it in the barrel now that we're connecting it to a chiller? Well, that really depends. Depends on your body type, depends on how you like taking ice bath. If there is some dynamics at play when you connect it to a chiller, and we need to talk about the water level. So right here in my ice barrel, I like to fill it up right below the top bulkhead. And that allows the water to come out. It sounds really cool, and that fits my body type perfectly. But for some of you, you might actually want to fill it up above the bulkhead. And if you do that, there's a few steps that we need to take when we first start up the chiller, because there's a little bit of air in the system, and when we fill the water level above that top bulkhead, it actually creates pressure down through that tube so that we can't release the rest of the air that's in the system. All right, everything's filled up. Go ahead and take off our carbon filter, let it drain out there. We're almost there. We got our ice barrel in place, we got our chiller in place, pre-filters in place, water's in the barrel. Let's go ahead and open the bulkhead valves. One thing to note is they are tight sometimes for the first time opening, and if you have a hard time getting them open, you might need just a little bit of like a crescent wrench or some sort of pliers. Just be careful not to scratch your finish, because that black brass looks sick and you don't want to mess that up. So a little bit different for those of you that have actually filled up the water above the top bulkhead. We're actually going to make sure this top valve is shut, and we're going to open this up, and we're going to make sure that the air can be let out of the tube and the water can flow into the pump so the pump can prime. Then that's all you need to do. So if your water's below the bulkhead or your water's above the bulkhead, now you should have a primed pump. Both valves are open and we're ready to turn on the chiller. On the back of the chiller here, we have a soft touch power button. Once the chiller's plugged in, all we have to do to turn it on is press and hold this for 3 seconds. That is going to be the same thing we're going to do to actually shut it off. We're going to press and hold it for 3 seconds. Now, once the chiller turns on for the very first time, it'll start pumping some water, and you'll notice that the filter bowl will fill up with water. You may have a little air. Every one of these chillers at the factory gets leak test twice, and the system gets ran at the end to make sure that everything has no leaks and everything works perfectly. So there is air in the system when you first get it. So if for any reason you're getting, this isn't filling up with water like you just saw, that might mean that you have some back pressure from that top port, and you actually need to burp the system again, taking that hose off, making sure that the chiller's off so it's not pumping, making sure that there's no air in the system, and then reconnecting it. So now that we've seen the welcome screens, we're going to jump right in, and it's going to give us a tutorial on how to use our control wheel, how to navigate a few of the things that the control wheel can do. So control wheel can go left and right and click. The first thing it's going to have you do is click to show you that that's how you select for action. Then next, after that, it's going to show you that the scroll allows you to navigate left and right. And then after that, it'll actually bring you to a part of the onboarding that is setup and assembly. Well, you've already done all that work, but if you're like me, you might have started up your chiller early and didn't hook everything up, and you got really excited. We wanted to make sure that we put all those steps that are in the manual right in the chiller, so you know that's very important to get your chiller set up, get it full of water and ready to go. Since we've done all those steps already, because we read our manual, we're gonna skip those steps. Earlier, I said something to you about downloading the app. If you haven't done that already, the next page will show you a QR code where you can download the app. After you've downloaded that app, you need to make sure you go through and set up your profile. There's going to be a bunch of questions on there about your routine and your habits and your experience level around cold therapy, because the app is not just something that controls your chiller, it's also a community. It's also a place where you can get world-class coaching. And then finally, you can just simply track an ice bath. Once your profile is set up, go ahead and click continue on this part. We're ready to connect it to Wi-Fi. There are a few things that are really important to know. First of all, you need to have your phone, you need to have the app downloaded, you need to be in range of Wi-Fi. That Wi-Fi channel that your phone is connected to, that the chiller is going to ultimately be connected to, needs to be a 2.4 gigahertz network. There are a couple ways that you can start the app setup. One, you can pull out your camera and you can just scan the QR code, and that'll take you right into the app right into the page where you'll see your selected network and you can put your password in. Now, if you don't want to do that, or if you already have the app open, the other way to do that is right from your app, you'll see that you click on Chiller, and then within Chiller, it says connect your ice barrel chiller. So we're going to connect the chiller. And again, just in case you skipped any of the assembly steps, we have all of those steps built into the app as well as a part of the onboarding. We're going to skip those. Now we have a QR code scanner right here within the app. So if you didn't scan it with your phone, you can just go ahead and use this to scan it. And it instantly takes you right into the page where you can enter your password and see what network you're connected to. If for some reason there's something wrong with the camera on your phone, or you're having a hard time using the QR code, you can simply use the SSID code that's provided there. Below the QR code scanner, there is a place where you can click, and then you can enter that code. Once you've entered that, you can hit continue, and that's kind of the third way you can get to that screen where you see your network and you can enter your password. One thing to note about the password is to make sure that you're not copying and pasting. Verify if you have any case sensitive, uppercase, lowercase. So I checked it, I clicked on the eyeball just to verify that my password's correct. Now I'm gonna click next. And the first thing you're gonna see is a little pop-up. And that pop-up is asking you to connect your phone to the network that the chiller's creating. I'm gonna click join. I'm gonna give that a few seconds. One way to know that everything is progressing correctly, you'll notice that the chiller, its screen will change and let you know that you need to continue doing all the setup process in the app. Now you'll get a second pop-up, and this is that final time where it's actually gonna connect to the chiller. I'm gonna hit join, and then the next thing you'll see is actually the screen on the chiller will change and it will go to the home screen. It'll be the first time seeing the home screen on the chiller. And there are a few more details that we actually need to fill out in the app. Once the app starts up, it's going to have you select the type of ice barrel that you're connecting to, whether it's a 500, 400, or a 300. Then you're going to select your location. Mine's set up outdoors. There we go. And then finally, we're going to give the chiller a name. Any name you want. Why do you need to name the chiller? Well, one of the things that the Ice Barrel app supports is multiple chillers. So if you have multiple chillers, it's really helpful to know which one is which. So chiller number 1, chiller number 2, whatever you want to name it. So I'll go ahead and name mine. And don't forget to add an emoji, and that's it. We're going to click next. Now, the next screen is going to actually bring you into one of the other features that's really cool about our app, which is multi-user support. So let's say you live in a family and your wife likes to take an ice bath in the morning, you like to take an ice bath after work. No problem, we got you covered. You can invite them to the app. They can log data in the app from the chiller. They can be able to turn it on, set up their own schedule, as well as set up yours. But ultimately, you are the owner of the chiller, so you have control over those members. When they're invited, you can delete them at any time. Let's say you have a group of people that come over and you want to invite them for a period of time, you can do that. They can log all the information that's coming straight out of the chiller right into their app, right into their sessions, and then you can just remove them from your account at any time. Now your chiller is connected to Wi-Fi and your app is all set up. Onto one of the most important steps, and that's scheduling your first ice bath. Unlike most other chillers, where you just set the temperature, walk away, and it runs and wastes a ton of energy, all you have to do on the Ice Barrel app is set up your schedule. Tell it what time you want to have an ice bath, and it will be ready for you. Now, there's a lot of complex things that are going on behind the scenes to make all that happen, and I want to explain some of how that works, but let's go ahead and set up our first schedule. So I'm going to jump into scheduling here. It says no session today, start a new schedule. I'm going to click in there, and I'm going to set up a recurring schedule because I like to get cold every evening. I have some people over during the week. So I'm going to set something special for Monday through Friday. And let's have this thing ready by 7 p.m. And we hit the sauna and ice barrel. And I want to make sure that we kind of wrap up by 10 p.m. And temperature wise, let's make it easy for everybody that's coming over. I got a lot of guests. We're going to make it 53. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add that to my schedule. Now, the amazing thing about advanced scheduling is I just program this to be ready every night at 7 p.m. at 53 degrees. I don't do anything else. It'll start cooling during the day at the right appropriate time, depending on the weather, depending on the ambient air temperature, sunlight, water temperature. It'll choose what time it needs to start cooling for each of those days in order to be ready by 7 p.m. And then at 10 p.m., it is going to stop doing that and go to a mode called Smart Sense, which we'll explain a little bit more later on. Now, I also like to get cold in the morning sometimes. So I want to go ahead and add one more schedule. And I also want to make this reoccurring. And I just want to make this every day of the week. And I'm going to set this for 6 a.m. There we go. I got it at 6 a.m. and I only need it cold for just a little bit. So I'm going to have it end at 6:15. And I like it a little colder in the morning, so I'm going to set it to 45. And I'm going to hit add schedule. So now, not only do I have that evening session scheduled, I have that morning session scheduled, and all that other time where it doesn't actually need to be running, it's going to conserve a ton of energy. While you're waiting for your ice barrel to cool down for your very first ice bath, I'm going to walk you through a bunch of features that exist in the chiller and in the app. And guess what? When your ice bath is ready, it'll send you a notification to hop on in. All right, I'm going to give you a really brief overview of the app control center. So within the app, on the bottom bar, you're going to click chiller, and then you're going to show up right here at the control center. This area right here is our dynamic dial. You'll notice that it shows the current temperature. You can change that dial up and down, and that affects our set point. And we're going to set it to, let's say, 42 for right now. And then below that, in the left-hand corner right here, is our info center. So that tells us what mode it's in, Smart Sense, cooling, ready, things like that, and the current temperature. Plus, it will also give information about how long it'll be cooling until it's ready for your next session. So, for example, let's say I want to do an instant session. Right below that, you can see this bar, and currently the mode is Smart Sense. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on cooling. Quick click right there, we go right into cooling, and it'll start cooling down. It'll tell us roughly our time to temperature, and then once it's reached that temperature, it'll send you a notification, let you know that the chiller is ready. Now, one thing to note about instant sessions. Instant sessions are really for those moments where you're like, I'm gonna go for a run, I'm gonna come back, and I want it ready for an ice bath, and I want it at this temperature. Now, instant session will take the time that it needs to get down to that temperature. Once it reaches that temperature, it will hold that temperature for a period of 3 hours. And then after that, it'll go back to Smart Sense. Below the bar where you can switch between Smart Sense and cooling is a section that shows you your next coming schedule. So for today, I have it scheduled from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then if you need to edit that schedule, you just click on the little blue dot, and then you see everything that you have scheduled for the next coming 15 days. You can add a schedule here, or you can hop in and edit a schedule. Up here in the left-hand corner is a quick way to add users to your chiller. Just like you did in the beginning when you were setting it up, you can add somebody and you can actually remove them from here as well. You can also see anybody that's been invited that hasn't joined yet. Up here on the middle section, you'll see the specific chiller that we're connected to right now. If you click that, you can add another chiller and walk through all those steps of adding a secondary chiller. In the upper right-hand corner is how you get into settings, where you can see things like members, maintenance mode, switching on and off, the network you're connected to or connecting to a new network, the equipment, so if you were to change your equipment, you could update your equipment, your chiller name, you can always change your chiller name, and the location. So let's say you move it indoors and you want to make sure that the app knows that information so that it can use that in some of the algorithms that it's running. And then finally, you see the chiller version and factory reset. Now, the app is full of amazing features that allow us to control the chiller, but you can control the chiller right from the interface on the screen here. Now, we designed the chiller to have a very simple interface with a control wheel, and it goes to sleep after about 30 seconds, and only thing you have to do to wake it up is just click the wheel once. the home screen will come right up, and I'm gonna walk you through what you're looking at. You'll notice one of the biggest sections of the home screen is the dynamic dial. In the center of the dynamic dial is your current temperature, nice and bold so you can see it from far away. On the outside of the dynamic dial is where you'll see your temperature adjust when you're setting up your set point. Over here in the left-hand corner in this stack, we have what mode we're in, how long it's going to take to cool down to that temperature. Also, we'll see how long we're going to hold that temperature or when your next scheduled session is and your current set point. Finally, up here in the left-hand corner shows that you're currently connected to Wi-Fi. If you weren't, it'd be slashed out, and our current temperature. To navigate the home screen, we've made it really simple. With the control wheel, you only have a few options, left and right, and click. So to change the temperature, you just scroll up or down. So for right now, I want to go ahead and set it at 46. You'll notice that we'll have a pop-up come up. It'll want to confirm whether or not this is actually the temperature we wanted to select, just in case you accidentally changed the temperature and you didn't mean to. So yes, that is the temperature I want to set it to. And now it's set to 46. You'll notice nothing's happened, right? Because we're still in Smart Sense. So since we're in Smart Sense and I want to switch it over to cooling, all I have to do is click the button once and it switches to cooling. In the info center here, you'll see cooling, and you'll also see displayed how much time it's going to take to get down to that set point. And you'll notice that the color changed. Blue is always an indication that the chiller is actually cooling. If you're in cooling and you want to switch back over to Smart Sense, all you have to do is click the button once. It'll ask you to confirm whether or not you actually want to make that change, because you're going to cancel cooling. And yes, I do want to make that change, and then it'll go right back to Smart Sense. There's one last thing you can do here on the home screen, which is to access the menu system. To do that, all you have to do is press and hold the button for 3 seconds. And then you'll see you're in the menu system. Now I'm going to briefly walk you through some of the sections of the menu. Here at this top part, we can click between Smart Sense and cooling. In here, we can adjust the temperature. If you scroll down one more, you'll be in schedule. Now currently our schedule is actually set in the Ice Barrel app, and if you want to override that and set the schedule here at the chiller, you'll get a double confirmation that it's actually something you want to do. Note that if you change the schedule here on the chiller, you will delete all of your scheduling that you've already set up in the app. We're going to say yes, we're going to override all that, and then right here you can set a rudimentary schedule. So you can set the temperature, let's set it to 50. Go down here, yeah, 8:30 a.m. actually sounds good, to 9:30 a.m. that sounds wonderful. And you can set the days of the week that you want that. And then once you hit set, that schedule will be displayed in here. So every time you come back to schedule, you'll see that. And then it will also show up in your app. Now, with a more complex schedule that you can set up in the app, there's no simple way for us to be able to display that here in the chiller. So that's why you saw that message at the beginning that said your schedule was already set in the app. Below scheduling is our notification center that exists here in the chiller. Much like the notification center that's in the app, you'll see any upcoming scheduled maintenance that's needed, like changing water filters, cleaning pre-filters, cleaning air filters, and any notifications that are related to any kind of warnings. Below that is we can get into all the nitty-gritty settings. One of the things that we'll talk about in a future video is maintenance mode. We want to put it in maintenance mode anytime that we're going to clean our ice barrel, we're going to clean a filter. Anytime we're going to open up the water system, we want to make sure none of the pumps or compressors are running in the chiller system. So it's really simple, just going down to maintenance, quickly double confirmation, yes, I want to switch to maintenance mode. Now, as we come to the home screen, you can see that we're currently in maintenance mode. We'll jump back in, scroll down to settings, and we'll switch it back out of maintenance mode. Right below maintenance is get help. Scanning this QR code gets you right to our whole suite of articles. Below this is Wi-Fi, so you can see I'm currently connected to Wi-Fi and what network I'm connected to. This is also a part of the steps you'd have to take to change Wi-Fi. Let's say you get a new router or you take your chiller to a new location and you want to connect to that Wi-Fi. Date and time is something that right now is currently set from the cloud. So because we're connected to the cloud, that information is being set. But if you weren't connected to the cloud, you could change date and time. Chiller location, whether you set that in the app or set that here on the chiller. You can choose the difference between an indoor chiller or an outdoor chiller. And equipment. Again, like we said earlier in the app, it's really important that the chiller knows what equipment it's set to. So here you can change it between Ice Barrel 300, Ice Barrel 400, 500, or other. Finally, you can switch between Celsius and Fahrenheit for those of you that love the Fahrenheit. It's already set there. For those of you that enjoy Celsius, you can switch to there. This is super helpful. You can see what current software version that we're running. Our chiller does get periodic software updates to make it better. So the chiller you buy today and set up, 100 days from now is way better chiller because of all the work we're doing behind the scenes to continue to update the chiller. You don't need to do anything for that. It will automatically do updates, but it will show you the version it's on, your serial number, and the model number of your chiller. And lastly is factory reset. Now, one thing to note about factory reset, if you ever have any troubleshooting with the chiller, factory reset is not always the first thing you want to do. We have extensive amount of information on troubleshooting. Factory reset is, we really designed it as if you were going to sell your chiller or give it to someone else, and just like your iPhone or an Apple Watch, you didn't want your information or your data connected to this chiller anymore. So factory reset allows you to disconnect your chiller from your account. So if you were to do factory reset, that whole process where we did the onboarding and set up Wi-Fi, you would have to do all that over again. So it's kind of the last step. And if you ever think you need to do factory reset to try to troubleshoot or fix something, please just reach out to us first and consult our, all of our articles on any troubleshooting. So that is the entire navigation of everything that is inside the chiller. And hopefully that gives you a brief overview of what's there, how to get to it. And if you have any more questions on how that works, you can dive into all the articles we have just by going to Get Help right here in the menu and scanning that QR code.